Hey everybody, hope you're all having a lovely weekend and a lovely week. We're going to be reviewing a 20 The Other Side today. Um, Unfortunately, the start of this kind of misses the first couple of packs. Uh, One of those things where I forgot to hit record at the start and it was a bit of a cluster, and during the cluster I hit record, so it's a little bit sloppy at the start. We've cleared the first pack and gone round to the second pack with the Death Speaker going towards the Arden Wheel Zone, and it's been a little bit of a mess. So, without any further delay, let's get into the video and we'll just play it. So, we're just cleaning up the pack at this point. Not too much to say. I have been playing around with gear and stuff in between these various 20s that we've been doing. This was still one of the keys that was done last week. I do have a Halls of Atonement and a Theatre of Pain to release from this week's affixes, a Tyrannical week, with the halls being a particularly good one to look forward to. So I will bang them all out today and then schedule them for release over the next few days. So look forward to that. As for this particular DOS key though, what we've been playing around with and utilising in various ways is shifting trinkets and gems. Also the domination gems as well. So during one of my buffs that I currently have is the.
I got slowed immediately, so
I will
just
mute the video itself because this was obviously taken with recording, so it does have my recordings through it. And if anything comes up that's particularly impressive, I will try and release it accordingly. So for the domination shards, I am currently using the absorb frost one. So removing one of the unused unholy gems and adding the utility of the frost, just to give you that absorbing or the rolling buffer essentially of damage. It's not a huge amount of damage, it's only about 5k, which is a hit, but still over the course of the dungeon it did, I think it was about 15 to 20% of my total healing. Like my total healing done between that, my leech, and things like Shield of Vengeance. So I get value out of it, and it's not at rank 5 yet. Due to obviously various raid issues and things like that, I've not really got round to getting everything at rank 5 for the Stygian Embers jobby. So need to work on that. Especially as I continue to push higher keys, I need to try and get a few better bits of gear here and there. So, Arden Wheel section, not too much to say here really. Kind of, your standard AoE shenanigans with our usual comp. Unfortunately, Spiteful does make it so that uptime and whatnot is a little bit more challenging for us as things die if they have different health percentages, but still. Trying to utilize ranged abilities where I can and weave in and around the Spitefuls. Not the smoothest and not the cleanest way to do it, certainly, but with Spiteful not being a particularly popular or common affix, it unfortunately takes me quite a while to get into the practice of it. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, with us having done a lot of these types of videos in the past, there's not too much to talk about really as we're going through the dungeon. I'm kind of making less less obvious mistakes, I guess. There's still obviously points where I could improve cooldown usage and communication. That definitely still needs to be a thing. But it is slowly improving to the point where I feel like it's not necessarily relevant for me to keep pointing it out to you guys. I pre-sack Stormy there to try and get my Shield of Vengeance to proc faster. And as you can see, I am still running the Execution Sentence, even though it's a fortified week. Some people would argue at this point it's time to use Zeal, but eh. Trying to avoid all the Spitefalls, which really isn't helping. And our Elemental Shaman's definitely coming into his own. Now, one thing I did do there is a Spitefall was targeting me. And did actually slap me, doing quite a bit of damage, but because it had so little health, I essentially took the gamble that it only would get the one hit in order to maintain uptime on everything else, which wasn't ideal. Now, one thing about Ardenweald, or this particular section of DOS, is the percentages. You can see them now using a weak aura in the top right of the screen, right next to the Keystone Master UI. And that basically lets you know how much percent you need in order to finish it. Certain dungeons, it's obviously a lot better, like Sanguine Depths, where it tells you the percent you need before you drop down after a certain boss. Unfortunately, I'm getting slapped by a Spitefall there, and I shouldn't be. But because the Mechagon portion of the other side is such a grueling area, a lot of people opt to skip there. And in order to skip there, you obviously need to get your extra percentage from the Ardenweald area, because there's so much trash here. You could, in theory, get to about 80% here and not have to worry about a thing, if you took absolutely everything. Obviously, you don't need to, but it's a problem. So the percentage that we're looking for, I believe, is about 60%, or 58. It might be 58%. We'll find out at the end here. Me getting slapped by Spitefalls. That is something I definitely need to improve on during these weeks. A lot of unnecessary damage was taken on my end. Apologies about the yawns. Stormy has developed into a very aggressive tank, which is quite nice. It does mean that I'm having to relearn certain timers, because it's caught me off guard a few times now, where we've gone from pack, boss, and I've been like, I've still got like 30 seconds left on cooldowns, because I didn't think we were going to be doing this. But as we get more comfortable, we'll get into the gist of it. And I believe around Christmas time, Stormy wants to do a great push. So we will be trying to get score and climb, which will be quite nice. It would be lovely if we could. Unfortunately, Spitefall spawned right on top of me. Takes me a little bit longer than I'd like to admit to realize which one it is that's slapping me. But yeah, Stormy would like to get score, and it would be great if we can get into kind of the higher tiers. Because as things currently stand, I believe I'm in the top 20. Or is it top 25 for Ret Paladins at the moment for my realm? As things currently stand, as of this very minute, I am 18th on Kazakh at 2,376 score, which is nice, but getting to 24 or even that lovely 27, like getting to 2,700 would be amazing. And the last week or so of the season, I might just live in Mythic Plus and try it. Just cycle my own keys or something. This would be nice. Because I think in terms of Ret Paladins at least, getting that 2,700 or getting the score for the title is... I think there's only like 13, 14 Paladins in the world that are going to get it. It'd be nice to be one of them. We can do it. We can get there. We just... I need to up my game. I need to play around with my stats a little bit more and try and improve my DPS. Unfortunately, Dealer Zaexa is just... She's a horrible fight. Now, that was a lay on hands on Stormy, and I got him to like 60% health. That man just has more health than you can shake a stick at. And for some reason, Stitch died in the air. $54.69. And we still need a little bit more percent. So Stormy is going to pull some extras. So we're at 54.69 and or 210 count for those of you that work in count, because I realized that that's something that's probably easier for people. And then we go to 56.77 or 218 count. Now, one thing that will need to be mentioned here is obviously this isn't the cleanest DOS so far. Like, there have been 4deaths, but we're still getting used to this invis skipping part. It's something that's still causing us problems, so we get like a couple of weird deaths, or we have to rely on the combat res that is Arc. Now, Stitch very graciously kind of waited for me, seeing as, you know, Paladin is slow. I use Cavalier to make him go faster. Now the question is, do I remember to swap off Cavalier? Stitch just drops me in that. Yeah, as you can see, Holy Paladins are better than Ret when they have all their cooldowns. 9.2 terrifies me. It really does. Only just pulling ahead of the healer on that pack. Like, I know I didn't have wings, but still, that just hurts. Now, interesting thing to note is if pets, guardians, and things like that are caught in that in that slam down, they are stunned. So, Ark's Storm Elemental, which is a huge part of his cooldowns, is lost, as is Stitch's Seth and Zwen if you're a monk. So, you really need to be careful with pet management during the Sogodon thing. Because as you saw, my Bron got stunned as well. Because that is something as well. Like, there's a lot of growth, or a lot of people saying that, like, you just use Pelagos for everything. And Pelagos has his place, certainly, and he is better, but I'm finding that Mechanicos, especially for dungeons, enables me to get away with points where if I know a fight isn't going to last a minute, and I don't want to use Final Reckoning, bearing in mind that Final Reckoning still has its passive effect anyway when you don't use it, so you can use it for a more utility-focused thing. You can still Seth, Divine Toll, and Wake, which is still a considerable amount of burst in a window. Granted, it's not using minutes, but it's still sufficient, which is something that we might see in 9.2 if the speculation stays as it is. Because me being a dingbat kind of realised that there might be a strong contender for Mechanicos in dungeons as Kyrian and still staying Divine Resonance. Because as the article released from, or the write-up for the 9.2 stuff by Bolas over on Wowhead, I'll link it below in the comments or in the description, that having Divine Resonance and all those free judgments means that having Zeal up constantly is much easier. It's the same with Virtuous Command, or Virtuous Command. Seeing as I remember a comment somewhere where I misspoke, but here you can see the invis skip. So, a little bit tight. Time, unfortunately, just trying to go fast, ends up getting caught by the blobs, which means that he may... Yeah, he's out of range. But we can get Stormy, so time is going to have to end here a second time. And the question is this the DOS I remember? Where time ends up getting us killed. We good? No, we're in combat, and this is where we have to rely on the Ankh. Man. It's not looking good for this 20, is it? Fine. 55 seconds. Me just looking at my total cock-ups. I've cocked up twice so far. Quite harsh on my own deaths, really, when I watch things back. So, we're sat, we're eating, rebuffing. I'm getting my food buff. Probably should see if Darkmoon Feast is still a thing, because you can just click them and you instantly get the verse. But I can't remember how badly they got nerfed. So Stitch doing most of the heavy lifting for this pack for us. The boy got a proc. Not too much to say here for Millhouse and Millie. I pretty much burst at start and then we lost Millie. So you'll kind of see our damage go the way it is. And Stitch takes the first crystal. Ooh, I don't know what that 40k was, but it was nice. And at this point, I had elicited the whole, maybe you should take the first crystal. Which, you know, if I've got everything saved like that, might actually be the best play going forward. Because I'd be able to use Shield of Vengeance as well. Yeah, so if I've got everything saved up like that, Shield of Vengeance and stuff to absorb the damage from the crystal, then I could probably hit maybe 20k without Last, which would be nice. Bearing in mind that I'm obviously running M plus build and setup rather than raid setup. I should have probably moved around to the right there and let time just stand still and focus, but I didn't, and obviously time was prioritizing his damage. So that, yeah, I made the call there to run and get it, so time could keep focusing on healing and tap out the other stuff. But Millie is transitioned, which is good, and then we go back to Millhouse. 18 seconds on CDs, and we're okay. Interesting thing to note, actually, just as a side topic, kind of going through these keys and dungeons. Try and have a count or think, if you're obviously sat here watching it rather than just listening to me talk, about how many Art of War procs and Imperium powers we're getting. Because the data that I've collected over the last few weeks, obviously you guys can't see it, you just see writing. Because I've got it on 5 or 6 pages now. The various proc rates of Imperium power, how many casts of like Divine Storm I use, Execution Sentence, how many have hit, the total percentage of damage, things like that. And I'm going to try and create a spreadsheet of sorts. Yeah, Stormy here thought that he was in stealth and wasn't. So we end up getting caught in crap. Which just ends up being a case of a couple more deaths added to the roster. At least on the bright side, I'm on the other side of the door now. So there's that. But back to the data. The plan is for me to try and create a visual representation of where I think, given current standard values, are going to be for our talents going forward next tier. Time with the second blinding light there. Coming in clutch. Just snare that and keep running. Kick priority was called here, so Stitch takes first, I take second. Calling a kick priority here is also quite good because it means that you're in a position like Stitch can kick first, get the 10% damage bonus, and then just go. Whereas for me, if I knew that I'm taking second, then I can... Or realistically, I should have probably taken third, because third would have lined up with my minutes. But for this particular pack, I'm actually holding my minutes and holding for the next pack. There's a few times where I do panic during Incinerator because the boys are saving, like, PvP kicking at, like, the last possible second or millisecond for a 20 Incinerator probably isn't the smartest move, and it kind of makes me nervous, but I just gotta trust. Because the problem is when you save it for PvP, you're, like, if you lag or something, it can go horribly wrong, having been there myself in the past, relying on like snap utility for or snap movement when I used to main Warlock and things like that. Really not good. Quite happy with this particular pack. Keeping up with Stitch for the most part, and Stitch just pipped me to the post for this pack, which was pretty cool, to be honest. Yeah, just delete that pack. Which was pretty nice. That's a nice pack, to be honest. But yeah, Divine Storm 7 casts did 424k, and that's not taking into account the quick Templars or Tempest. Tempest to the Lightbringer. Legendary casts as well, because that would have been further down on the meter. Unfortunately, we didn't have CC. Miscommunication, I think, on who was doing it. So then we ended up overlapping at the last second. But it's fine. Kind of this Hakar wing isn't too bad. Obviously, the 16 deaths at this point isn't great, but we'll manage it. So I kick the low health priest, Ark kick the high, and we just go into it. You can see as well that, like, I had Divine Toll to use, so I used it, and the Divine Toll has got 30 seconds, which is less than, or pretty much on par with some of my other abilities. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but you can get more uses out of it when you have Mechanicos, which is quite nice. So you can get more, or you can have that snap holy power a lot more frequently. Yay, more spiteful to dodge. One thing that I am realizing as well, and I don't like anyone that's running 22s, 23s, 24 keys, please let me know here. Like, I get execution sentence is priority damage, but how do you use it from a pack-to-pack basis? Because I'm looking back at my footage, I'm realizing that I'm not actually using execution sentence, like, on cooldown. And I probably should be, but I'm so focused on trying to get the rest of my damage out that the 8 seconds seems to be, eh. Because you can see here that I use it, but I don't have anything else to go with it. So I've just massively desynced execution sentence by like 48 seconds. Because 43 seconds on execution, final reckoning's back up, so just a desync of abilities here, which isn't good. I should have been better. But I don't know. Do I just use it for bosses? Like, do I ignore it the rest of the time, or? Try and kill the Hexer, and then I swap to the healer. Thankfully, we were quite lucky, because this pack took so long, my cooldowns have kind of realigned with themselves anyway, except for Wake. I could just say it was big brain, and I'm practicing ahead of 9.2 and having Wake desync from everything else. But I don't really think that counts as a highbrow play, to be honest. That's just me being a mongoloid. But it's fine. Everything looked out fine. Everything synced back up for the boss. We're fine. We're good. Everything's sorted. So yeah, it's time for Big Daddy Burst. We have Lust. We had Execution Sentence, which is about to go off. And it just slaps your DPS back up to where it belongs. For a little bit anyway. My moment of glory has now ended. There goes Wings. Oh, Lord. And I am trying my very, very best not to be beaten by the Holy Paladin. Which is horrifying, to be honest. Now it's the monk. Now it's the monk. Can I hold them off? Can I hold them off? We're all at 11k DPS. Right. Laying hands on me. Now, I'm comfortable using cooldowns at the end of this Hakar fight here because the Muzala fight, the first Shatter Reality, is about a minute into it. It's about a minute 5, I think. So you can use your abilities right at the start of the Muzala fight. As long as you hold wings, then you can get away with it. But with Hakar, getting Hakar dead and then just holding cooldowns until the Shatter Reality is also a viable option. So, obviously, as long as the execution sentence hit, which it did, thankfully, that's probably the better play, especially at higher keys. Our group likes to just do markers, so we know where everyone's going. Star traditionally is my marker, back from my heyday of playing a rogue, back in BFA, when Mythic Plus really became a thing for Calamity. So Star is front left. Ark is blue. He is blue and always blue. If you mark something, we've kind of like got Ark trained that if it's blue, it gets kicked. You just don't ask him about the other mechanics. Like yesterday, he found out that the pack just before you pull Sturgeon Stitchflesh, the large abomination in that pack does AoE dot damage, essentially. And obviously it persists past its corpse. So where it lands, where it dies, you pretty much just can't go near it, especially on higher keys. Yeah, I learned that yesterday. Bearing in mind that, Shadowlands has been out now for, a year and a bit. So here comes the Shadow Reality. Everything's up, everything's ready. Edging towards the post, because, I have seen people go for that portal and fall off the edge. Slap coolies. Execution sentence probably isn't going to go off. So a 20 execution sentence there on the Mozilla ad probably isn't worth it. But Paladins being Paladins, ours is the first one to go down, which is good. Might be interesting to see on a 20 Tyrannical if that's still the case. But now it's pretty much just free. As long as we don't have a monumental fuck up, we've still timed this, which is quite nice. And I can hear you in the comment section going, how can someone screw it up at this stage? Trust me, I've seen it done. I remember pugging one when I was hunting for my overwhelming power crystal, and I had to solo this last bit because everyone else decided to die. They all stood in the purple thing. Although, yeah, I just, I then got told off at the end of it for, why didn't you just die? It would have been quicker. It's like, I'm not wasting my time. Yeah, which is a bit like us 20 Sanguine Depths that we did. I don't have a recording of it. I was recording it, but was asked to essentially delete it and not release it. But because it was a royal cluster, we timed it, but we timed it because Stormy basically turned his Guardian Bear into a Blood Death Knight and soloed like the last 3%. Just. You were saying that a global out of it, or a global longer, and that would have been that. So, the 20 Sanguine Depths I don't have, unfortunately. I do, however, have all my other 20s. So, we will get on and review those. In the meantime, though, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's been a little bit helpful, and I will catch you all in the next one, folks. Take it easy and take care.